Hello there, Outliers and Trailblazers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your world today. We are here on the Outliers at the Roundtable, and I have an incredible guest here, one that I'm actually really excited to get in front of you all, Outliers, because this person, the way that they see the game of business and life actually really excites me. One of the things that we are really focused on right now is helping you go out and bring your movements to life. And part of bringing your movements to life is to be one of the first or to be one of the leading, to be able to sit on top of everything and help shape the direction of where things go as opposed to just being in response to that. And I'm really excited because today's guest here has done exactly that. So today we get to play with Frank Rolfe. Frank, I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you very much for making the time for this conversation.
You bet. Thanks for inviting me. It's exciting for me too.
Yeah, well, let's play here. I'd like to give our listeners an opportunity to get to know us by finding out more about you and the game that you're playing. So, would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Well, sure. I first have to tell you my concept on life is very simple. You have to score well in six categories: friends, family, fun, fitness, financial independence, and faith. Right? And so I've always looked at life a little differently from most people because it's not all about one category. You know, people tell me all the time, well, Warren Buffett, he's highly successful. Not to me. He's great on financial independence, rotten on friends and family. His wife left him, and I don't think he has a good relationship with almost anybody. Fitness, he's obviously a zero. Don't know about the faith component, but again, when people tell me, oh, I could have done this with my life or that, but I was, didn't have enough capital. That's not true. I've devoted my life to doing stuff people told me was impossible, and yet I've been able to get in there and get it going and do it. So my first chapter of impossible was I started a billboard company from scratch, straight out of college, no prior experience. People told me I was crazy, couldn't do it, it's impossible. I outworked everybody. I that was my plan there. I would just get the basic knowledge of how it worked, and then I would outwork all the seasoned pros. So I would work late until the night. I would work on Saturday. I would work on Sunday. If I was bidding against a big company, I would tell the guy, I'll have my proposal tomorrow morning. The guy would say, that's impossible at 6 o'clock at night. I said, I'll have it here in the morning. I get mine in. The big company couldn't get theirs in. They had to go to a committee. It was a week later. I already had it signed up and done before they even showed up, right? Sold that, grew that business to where I was the biggest private billboard owner in Dallas Fort Worth. I sold that business to a public company and then started the exact same concept, only with mobile home parks. And so my career has two chapters. It has the billboard chapter and the mobile home park chapter. But throughout the whole enterprise, the goal has always been to score high in those 6F categories. And so when you say the game you're playing, the macro game I'm playing is trying to get an A in all six categories. But on the financial independence side, that game I'm playing right now is the mobile home park business.
Oh, Frank, I really love the way that you're setting up this conversation. Firstly, it's great to get into your mind around this here, and I will explore both the chapters in a bit here.
Sure,
But underneath it, I want to just keep seeing like how you tick, and then how like you respond to the external world saying it can't
sure.
be done, right?
Yep.
So take us here to the very beginning here, right? So this is the billboards world here. I want to go in and get a sense as to like, firstly, like why billboards? Like out of
Yeah.
all the things.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so here's the deal. Back when I was in high school, I was not good at anything. I hated school. I never went anywhere in sports, had no friends, nothing. And then suddenly I had a summer job at an ad agency called the Richards Group. And I found there was one thing I was good at, and that was business. So I knew my destiny from that one summer job, really from the first day I was there. I thought, I love an office. It was kind of like the show The Office, right? It was like Dunder Mifflin. You had the same cast of characters, but for the first time, I could relate to people because maybe I was too adultish for being in high school. I don't know what the problem was, but I thought, man, this is awesome. I'm here in the air conditioning. People dress nicely. This is so fun. They almost had to drag me out of the office every night. I was first person there in the morning. So I was totally hooked on business. So I got in Stanford of all places. And I got in Stanford not because of my great academic credentials, but because I was yearbook editor of the year in 1979 for Taylor Publishing. Stanford has a very large yearbook and they wanted someone to be their editor. So they don't, recruit such a job. But when they see the thousands of applications they get, the guy saw my application and said, "Oh, this guy's perfect for yearbook editor," right? So that's kind of how I think I got into Stanford. I did not have an incredible SAT nor an incredible GPA, but I had really good credentials in one little finite niche. And I also learned from that that a lot of life is about being an expert in a little tiny niche. People try and be, experts in a wide range of skills, but if you're just really, really good in one little thing, there's typically a market for that, right? So I got into Stanford. My essay for my Stanford application was, how to do a better yearbook design. I think it was on modular yearbook design. So I went all in on the yearbook pitch. It worked. They love the application. Next thing you know, I'm in, right? But I also hated college. I didn't like college any more than high school. I wanted to get out into a real world of, eating lunch at a restaurant and wearing a suit. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be in school anymore. I had no interest. So I realized that if I never went home, if I just stayed in school and went straight from school, summer school, back to school, I could get out in 3 years. Right? Everyone said, don't do it. You're crazy. You'll never be able to do it. Stanford frowns on it. But there's only roughly, I think, 7 people a year out of thousands and thousands of people that get out a year early, but I was one of them. So I even officially changed my graduation class that I was assigned to. I'm now assigned to the class that's a year older than what I would normally be. So having a year out, realizing I wanted to be in business, what would you do back in 1982? Well, you would go to business school because back then an MBA meant something. And I thought coming out of Stanford, I would parlay Stanford into a good business school. But the best business school applications in the early 80s, if you wanted to score well, you had to have something relating to business in your essay, right? And the number one essay at that time to get into business school was to actually start a business because business schools, they're not just all 20-year-olds. They take 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. So you're competing against guys who opened a Subway sandwich shop or patented some device and went out and built a company around it, right? So I had to step up my level of play. I had a decent GPA, but again, I was trying to do the yearbook thing. So I thought, well, could I start? So I asked a lot of different people, what would you start for 1 year only on a business that doesn't take a lot of capital, that I would have a shot of success at? Because you can't write the essay if you fail, right? That's not a very good essay. Yeah, I started this and I went bankrupt. That's not going to turn anyone on. And bear in mind, I worked at an ad agency, so I understood advertising to some degree. And then someone threw out the concept of billboards. I didn't even know what they meant. They said the things on the highway, man, you get a ground lease, you build it, you rent the ad space, and they said you can do that for a year. You might get a sign, and then you sell it, and it's perfect. So I thought, you know what? I think I'll do that, right? But I didn't know anything about it. I never worked in a billboard company, did nothing. So I went over to the biggest billboard company in Dallas at that time called Clear Channel as a total goofball right out of college. I told them I was going to start a billboard company. The guys are like, you're on crack. You'll never pull it off. And I said, well, yeah, I know, but could you just give me some freebies? And the guy's like, what would you want? Can you give me a copy of a ground lease? I guess so. Can you give me a copy of an ad lease? Well, I guess so. And so they gave me some freebies, not realizing I basically took his stuff, whited out the company name, changed a few of the letters in it, and now I had a ground lease. I had a legal document. I had an ad lease. And then I just literally, through hard knocks, found my first location. I've hit, I don't know how many hundreds of people up. Can I build a billboard here? I get a contract. It was denied. Another one, it was denied. I finally got one, right? And as I ended my first year, I had 3. So now the question was, do I sell the 3 off, go back to business school or go to business school? And I thought, you know what? I hate school. School's awful. I'm just going to keep doing this because this is fun. This is business. This is my destiny. So I just keep doing that. And I did that for 14 straight years. And one of the best things that helped me was the Texas savings and loan crash of the late 80s, about 87, 88. Texas collapsed. You had a combination of oil prices going way down, changing the real estate laws as far as depreciation and stuff. And the Texas economy just completely imploded, and 3,000 Texas banks went under. So everyone was insolvent. Every building in downtown Dallas was posted for foreclosure. So once again, I kick into my don't tell me I can't do it mode, and I start buying up all the foreclosed billboards from people for next to nothing that are just walking off and leaving them saying they're not worth nothing because Texas is shot. So I double in size during the Texas savings and loan crash. And now I come out the other side and Texas starts to come back to life. I'm renting my signs, massively low overhead. I only had one other employee, that was a bookkeeper, and that was it. And so next thing you know, I got an offer from a public company to sell, and I jumped on there and I sold the thing off. So it was like a 14-year experience that seemed to pass in a millisecond. And that's the whole Billboard story right there.
Oh, Frank. So if y'all are just listening, I had myself on mute, and my smile just kept growing as you were talking here. So, Frank, what I want to do is, firstly, thank you for bringing us into that.
Sure.
What you're going to find with me is that I'm very reflective. So like there's things that people say, and then from my experience, I've gotten to the point where I've heard a lot of things, but the experience is what really makes the difference. It
Sure.
doesn't really get in. So part of what I was getting from you from just this part here is like you bring you fully commit, you know.
Yep.
And so like even as I was asking you about this story, like you were committed into it. And what was fun for me is as you were talking, I have a thing where if someone is telling a story that I feel like they're just telling the story that they normally do, I'll pause them,
Yeah.
I'll ask questions and such. But it really felt
Yep.
like you were approaching this from like as if it was the first time telling it. Like you've lived it, you know it, you
Yeah.
know what it is, but I could
Right.
feel that energetic difference there. Um, I wanted to make sure I called that out there because there's something about this where I could see like, hey, you've done this for 14 years, you know, you did that part for 14 years, and it
Yep.
still feels fresh for you. I'm going to
Yep.
bring out a couple different questions in here, but is there anything you want to speak to around that? I wanted to like help trailblazers see that, like, see there's a bit of nuance there where the energy was still so fresh, even though we're talking about 1979, 1982, it feels like it was happening just like last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can give you some of the thought processes that I use during the periods to overcome my problems, right? Because any business has problems along the way.
Hmm.
I used to read a lot of biographies, and I would read business biographies and war biographies. And to me, the war were more inspirational than the business ones were. And I was reading a book on some general or war technique in the Civil War, right? And the guys that won, their concept was your best shot is to run screaming at the enemy with your bayonet on. Just go full on commitment. Just don't hold back at all. You're either going to win or you're going to die. And when I was at the ad agency, I'll give you a wild story for you here. I was there during the gas embargo that was going on during the Carter era, right? And so you couldn't get gas at a gas station like you do today. When you wanted to get gas during you probably have no idea what I'm even talking about because I'm 64, okay? But back in the 70s, if you wanted to fill up your car, you might have to go to 4 gas stations because they had rationing and they didn't have enough gas. And the lines would go 3 blocks long. And you'd sit there in your car, you'd turn your car off, you'd overheat your car, and you'd stand by your car and you'd inch forward till you finally got your shot at the pump. And sometimes you got to the pump and they'd say, "Oh, got no gas." And then sometimes they'd say, "Okay, we only got like 20 gallons left. You can only have a gallon." Right? I know this is hard to believe, but I swear to God, it was true. So
There's good things. I'm glad you're bringing it up. Don't worry, I'll have questions on it.
okay, so what happened was when I had my dream job, my first job ever in business at the Richards Group, right? And I was the only intern they had. I was a high schooler. They never even had a high school intern before. So they didn't know what to do with me. They gave me all kinds of weird assignments. One of my assignments was to keep the owner of the ad agency's car gassed up, right? Because if you were going to meetings back then and you were driving around, you had to have gas in your car. You couldn't just go get gas. Gas was a career. So part of my job was every day I had to monitor the guy's car. And when the car got down a quarter tank down, I had to go find him gas again. So I would jump in his car, it was a Mercedes 450 convertible. It wasn't a bad car to be around town in, right? So I go down there and do that. So one day he has to go to the airport and he's been driving all day. He's down to a half a tank. And he says, "You know what? I don't know if we'll make it." So he says, "I want you to drive me to the airport. try and get back to the ad agency. And on the way back, the car may run out of gas. If it runs out of gas, call a tow truck, sit with my car, tow it back to the office, and then see if you can find a way from the tow truck driver to buy some gas from him because no one had any gas, right? It sounds like a horror movie. So I have to drive him to the airport. So as we're driving down the airport, I'm trying to ask him some questions like you're asking me. So I said to him, how did you risk everything to start this ad agency? Because he was working in another ad agency, right? But he gambled everything, quit, took his life savings. He said, well, here was the deal. He said, I had two options in life. I would either succeed or I'd end up as a cab driver. So he said, that's what drove me on. He said, I outworked everybody. So if a guy said, hey, I'm kind of interested, I'm looking for someone to make a logo, I'd make a logo that night if I stayed up all night. And I realized I was doing the same shtick he did. Only he at that time was 30, 40 years older than I was, right? So it was like, okay, that's how you get ahead is you just put your bayonet on and run screaming at your target. It's your best shot. And then you just outwork everybody. Screw all the other, 4-hour work week stuff. My theory was I would basically crush people who had lives, who had kids, who had wives, because they had to do stuff. They had to go home at 5. They had to go to a soccer game on Saturday. I didn't have any of those restrictions. I was an absolute maniac. I was there. I was literally working almost 24 hours a day.
There's something about this right now. So you're catching me in my wife mortgage to like kid
Yeah,
phase right now, right?
right.
I think I got very lucky. I had a friend a week before my firstborn was born. He came to me and he said he had just had his kid, and he's like, you will never really understand how much time you had before the kid
Yeah,
until after it's gone, and then you
that's
can't get it
correct.
back.
You can't get it. You can't get it back. But I have a theory on that. See, because my second chapter,
Mm,
the mobile home park chapter, began with the birth of my daughter.
mm.
See, I sold the Billboard company literally 2 weeks before my daughter was born.
Interesting.
So now I have a new issue because now I want to start a new company and I can't outwork them. Now I have to outthink them, but I have a backup. And the backup is I have the money from the Billboard sale. So I already have a stream of income coming in. So my theory on life is as an adult, you need multiple streams of income, right? And as part of the multiple streams of income plan, you have to be very smart with your time. Because often when you're trying to start a second stream of income, you've got to blend that into your whole family life and everything else. So you got to find all your wasted tidbits of time and make them productive. That's the key item. If you take a timesheet and you lay out what you do every day, when someone tells me, oh, I don't have time to do this or that, that's not true. You have the time. You just chose to do something else with the time that's often wasteful. Like I don't watch television. There's one thing I do different than most adults. I don't watch television. When other people watch television, I type proposals and things like that. Because to me, TV, waste of time. However, when my daughter was in sports or school activities, I made all of her sports, I made all of her school activities. I was at every single game. But I would bring my laptop because like she ran track. And when you run track in high school, she ran the 800. The 800 is roughly a 2.5 minute event. But I was in school for 8 hours at the track meet for 2.5 minutes. So I started to learn how to multitask my time. And so if I'm driving, I'm on the phone while I'm driving. While other people sit and watch things, I'm typing. And that's how I've been able to expand my time. So my first chapter in life was all about just trying to outwork everybody, stay up all night. It was insane. The second chapter was learning how to multitask where most people didn't do that. See, I have one motto, which I read in a book somewhere back in the 80s, which is successful people do what unsuccessful people don't. That's my theory. So I look at what people who it's not going well for them do, and I do the exact opposite of that. And a lot of people I see couch potatoes, watch a lot of TV. That's just dead time. I mean, time with your family, like the actual hardcore time with your family, like let's go for a walk, that's legit time. But a lot of times we fill our days with this fluff time that doesn't really do anything for you. If you read books historically in America back in the 1800s or even early 1900s, the average American worked 6 days a week. They didn't work Sunday, that was the day off, but they did work Monday through Saturday at most businesses. and they worked much longer hours, right? And if you look at how many hours they work compared to us today, we're pathetically low on the work ethic, right? We think a 40-hour week is a big deal. And in early America, an 80-hour week was kind of the norm. And if you look at where you spend your day, 8 hours sleeping, maybe 8 hours in the office, but then you got that other 8 hours, and then you got another 16 on Saturday and 16 on Sunday. That's a lot of hours, right? You're talking 40, you got almost 70 hours of free time. And
So I
in
want to bring
70 hours a week of free time, my God, you can start anything.
I want to bring this in. I want to bring this in for Outliers out here. So, like, Outliers, I want you to be asking yourself here, where, like, you talked about fluff time, you talked about dead time here, right? Like, where in your world right now can you immediately find and recapture some of that dead time, that fluff time for yourself here? I One of the things that was happening for me, Frank, as you were talking, was this realization of like, oh, you compressed. uh, you were getting, multiples on people's time, on the time it would take. So like if someone else would take them a week, you got it done in a day. You got it done in like 5 hours, you know? And so
Right.
like you could have, by the time their week went by, you had 30 weeks, you know? And I'm playing with this idea of time. It's almost like like looking at things in the big picture, macro, like, all right, I can do this for 14 years, and I'll sell then, right? But also like in the micro, just being really like aggressive and acknowledging that like I can compress this time into a shorter like overall period and have multiple at bats during that. Do you mind speaking to that? Because I think that
Yep.
it's a different paradigm. I feel like you live it, like you've lived more lives than all of us
Yeah, well,
because of that.
that's basically, I'm kind of like a dog. I mean, I'm getting like 7 lives in a year here. Okay.
Yeah.
So what anyone needs to do is keep a timesheet. I had to do that. See, when I was at the Richards Group as a high schooler, we had to keep a timesheet. And on that timesheet, I had to write every minute of every day what I was doing because the ad agency had to bill it back. Now, you only had to do it in 15-minute increments. And they had a lot of big clients. So a guy might say to me, hey, you need to take all these Time magazine covers, glue them on these boards. We got a TV commercial coming up. We got to put these all over the studio. And that would be my job because I was a summer intern dude, right? So I would be okay. I'd put the time I started. Let's say it took me 2 hours to do it. So on my timesheet, it would be there, 2 hours down, and they would bill Time magazine then 2 hours of the stupid high school intern's time, right? That's how it worked. But I learned from keeping the timesheet, we all just fluff off time like there's nobody's business, right? I mean, it's like in a typical business world, if you're going to have a 1 hour lunch, it's not a 1 hour lunch. It's like a 2 hour lunch, right? You're going to spend 30 minutes kind of casually talking to somebody. Hey, you want to go to lunch? What's up? Same on the backside. You got to park your car. You got to get in. And I found that most of the time we're just filling time. You know what I mean? It's like we're not going anywhere. We're just like, yeah, I gotta show up at my job and just got to make it happen. But if you change it, if you flip it, if you're like, okay, as long as I'm here, I'm just putting my bayonet on and going nuts with it, right? What's the downside of that? I mean, you can maybe advance higher in your career, but then you take that same theory and look at all of your time, not just the 8 hours of the office, but then you throw the other 16 on there, and you start seeing all kinds of gaping holes in your time. I'll give you an example, okay? I used to be fat. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now, right? So how did I get rid of the 40 pounds? I realized that all day long when I'm on the phone, I could walk. No one can see what I'm doing when I'm on the phone, right?
Hmm.
So what I do today is I never sit down during the day. When I get up for the day, I don't sit down again. I just walk. I hit typically anywhere from 10 to 20,000 steps a day.
Hmm.
That's when I'm on the phone, right? I burned off the calories because I don't do it. I got that idea from an article from the head guy at Apple back after the transition of Steve Jobs and whatever. That guy also realized he was sitting when he could be walking. So he started making all the meetings at Apple were walks. So if you had a meeting with a guy or even a committee, you walked while you had your meeting. Okay. But I'm finding that in life, there's all of this opportunity and time. If you look at your time as a tool, right? And something that should not be wasted, something that's rare and precious. And if you flip it and figure out your dead time, your wasted time, and then change your attitude where you're going to put the bayonet on and run screaming at whatever you're trying to pursue during your wasted time, then big things start happening, right? You could have an entire career, entire life outside of your regular career because you got enough time. You got 8 hours a day of time beyond your regular 8 hours that you spend on business, not to counting the weekend time. Now, at the same time, you'll then say, well, but I can't do it, man. I'm married. I've got kids and stuff. No, you can multitask your time. Look at what you actually do during your time at home. If you're watching TV, nope, you can sit right there on the couch watching TV with the family, but you could be typing a proposal or doing things like that. So I think my big thing has been all about trying to maximize my time efficiency.
Um, Outliers. So I'm enjoying this. My ask of you, and for anyone that's listening right now, to spend time right now doing a quick check-in for yourself, right? What parts of this like light you up? What parts of this is like feels really crunchy for you, right? And because Frank, part of what you're saying here, it goes against conventional wisdom, right? It goes
Correct.
against ease, right? It goes um and I think that the reason I want to outliers, I want you to take some time with this here is to see if it exposes for you something in here that you get a chance to like leverage. Maybe there's something in what he says where there's some truth, and rather than like, I want to give you that space to actually experience it. Frank, I appreciate you bringing in like this paradigm and this way of thinking, and not just like thinking about, but you act it. I can see like you've been doing it for decades. You know, there's something you said earlier that I want to make sure I pull back in, and then I want to get into some of like how you're thinking now, how you're growing the businesses, and so on and so forth. So something you brought up a while ago was you said it was when you're going into getting going to get your MBA, right? And you said, okay, I'll go out and start a business. And you said, I was trying to do the yearbook thing, right? I was trying to do the
Yeah,
yearbook thing. And my interpretation of that was that like the yearbook thing was you did something, you took it to a very high level, and then you spoke
correct.
about doing that, right?
Correct. It's all about specialization.
Specialization and also taking the action, right? You had the experience here
Yep.
and you're talking and I like that from two perspectives, because I think about different outliers out there, trailblazers out there. It's like one, like you didn't wait for permission to say I need to go to get my MBA first because the MBA is supposed to now allow me to go do the business, right? And I think
Right.
for a lot of
Right.
time we get in that like, do I have the knowledge? I have to have the credentials. I have to have this kind of someone else giving me the permission to go do it. And instead you're like, I'm gonna do it, and then come in and then tell you about the greatness that I did with it and come to you to say, can you take me to higher heights? Let me first check in with you. Does that feel accurate? Does that feel true to you?
Yeah, it does. But let me give you a thought of what parlaying off what you just said, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when people tell you to do this or that, what is their qualification to tell you that?
Mm.
See, I'm constantly questioning authority. Like, why? Give me a common sense reason why I should do this or not do this. Because so much of the world is just based on nonsense, hearsay, people who aren't qualified to tell you to do this or that, and we believe them like a bunch of lemmings, like they just jump off the hill into to their death,
What are you talking
following the
about?
leader. So to me, success is a lot of times questioning authority, and when people try and say, "Oh no, this is the rule," well, who made the rule, right? Who did any of this stuff? And so, like in my college application, everyone said, "Oh, you shouldn't be so specialized, man, because you're not going to get it anywhere if you go all in on the stupid yearbook thing." I mean, that was my plan, that was my gamble, but it worked,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
It,
sometimes if you specialize and outwork everybody, that's the key. We look at all the great businesses out there. What do they all have in common? People got specialized in an incredibly tight niche and then just simply outworked everybody in that one little niche. You can't be a generalist and succeed. It's almost impossible. I mean, name one successful football player out there who's a generalist. There isn't any. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, he can't run. He's never a running back. He can't catch a football. He's specialist as a quarterback, right? Everyone has their little position. Are specialists in that position. That's why they get paid the big bucks. They're specialists and they outwork everybody. That's my
oh,
view of football. You have to have some talent, but sometimes guys without a lot of talent can outwork other people and have the appearance they can overcome whatever their shortcoming is, right? But that's just kind of my weird theory on life.
Well, I don't think it's that like. Well, thank you for bringing the weird theory in. Reason I say I was gonna just say I don't think it's weird, but then I'm like, no, actually, I love weird, right? Weird, like
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
The there was something you were saying that got me to slow down a bit here. Okay, I want to talk about this. It's around the specializing. You brought it up from the very beginning, and I think that for Outliers, Trailblazers, we've done things that are different from the norm, right? Are like we're not supposed to be here in certain ways,
right.
and at the same time, one of the common things I hear from my people and that I work with when I'm coaching them too is like it's like I'm not a jack. People say I'm a jack of all trade, and there's something in this specializing thing that feels like it's like twofold because the level of intensity and commitment that you bring. I like let's just look at billboards right now, right? We'll look at that as an example.
Yeah,
Like
yep,
you specialize in billboards, but if I'm not mistaken, you had a two-person business. It was you and the bookkeeper, and we know what the bookkeeper
correct,
was doing, you know?
right.
So like even in the specialization, you had to take care of everything else. Let me make sure I'm like, is that fair? Or were you like,
Yeah,
I'm only picking
that's
up the
correct.
phone
But
call?
here's what I sacrificed on that, all right? Because
Okay.
I was not only the real estate guy getting the locations, I was the sales guy renting them. I realized that if I could find advertisers at really good pricing, they would renew forever. So I had 80% per year renewal. I'm not sure anyone has ever hit a level that high. Most billboards, you're on there for a year and they fall off. You got to get a new person. 80% of my people stuck year after year after year because I tried to match the perfect person to that sign. I would try and go to the advertisers at the next exit from the billboard. So the billboard would say McDonald's exit now. I would go to that McDonald's guy and I would convince him he needed that sign because it was perfect for him. And I was so persistent with it, he would finally say, okay, dude, I'll give it a shot. And lo and behold, after a year, you go, yeah, that sign was perfect for me. I'll renew. And after they renewed a couple times, they just kept renewing forever. So I was able to devote almost all my time to getting new locations when most everybody else was out slugging, trying to survive how to get their stuff rented. And that's also why during the recession, I stayed full when everyone else didn't, is because I put some thought into like, I was a matchmaker who needs this sign. And, if you're a business in a recession, you need sales, right? If that McDonald's realized that that sign represented 20% of his walk-in traffic, he's gonna keep renewing me. So that's what I did. So you're correct. I was never really a jack of all trades on the billboard side. My specialty was to outwork people on getting the new locations. That's where the money is, right? As you grow, getting locations. The on the sales side, I was able to get out of having a staff or anything on the sales by just simply renewing. I was really kind of like a Costco because my prices were cheaper, but my rationalization would be if the sign said empty for a year in between each advertiser, that's like only getting half of what I was getting. So I wanted to stay full cheap. I was kind of using the old Costco approach.
Well, I love this too, right? Because um, there's a lot of sense in it, and it's easy to look at it like easier to look at it now after it's already been successful, right? But what I
Right.
hear is that like you were taking on a model, so like there was a lot of things that were contrary or like just you on that, right? You were working in an industry most other people don't. You were out working, which we were putting in hours and that most other people weren't. And like even though you were putting in your own individual hours, like some of these bigger organizations, they had team. They could have done things in a more compressed time frame. So I think that
Right.
there's a separation between just the outworking component of it
Yep.
and the actual like speed to delivery. Let's call it that right there. There's,
Yep.
there's something there because if you had five people, they could have gotten it done in that same period of time. So like,
Correct.
so there's that's
Let, let
showing
me
up.
let me
Yeah.
also let me tell you on that. Like again, looking at a one of the books on Civil War strategies.
Yes.
What some people would do in the Civil War was there was a typical pace in which things would happen during the 1800s, right?
Hmm.
And you were on a horse, right? You didn't have cars, things like that. But people realized that if they told one general, the guy's coming with the army up the dirt road here, they would mentally calculate when you would arrive. They would say, let's see, 5,000 men 800 horses, all the wagons and the stuff. They'd say, okay, he won't get here for 5 days. Well, what some of the generals realized is they could win by accelerating that time frame because the other group was so convinced it would take 5 days to march there that they'd just be out, partying, resting, waiting for you to show up 5 days into the future. What the smart guys would do is they would tell the guys, we'll have a 50% better chance if instead of walking this deal, you all jog it. Just jog it part of every day. And if you cut people off the time schedule, you'd annihilate them. And that's what I was doing with billboards. See, when I would go to like, let's just say I went to McDonald's and I'd say, this is a perfect sign for you. He goes, well, okay, but like, what would I put on? I'd say, I'll have artwork to you in the morning. The guy'd say, okay. Never figuring I could possibly get the artwork done to the guy in the morning. But what I would do is I would just stay up there late at night and get all the artwork done. And lo and behold, when he shows up, I already have the artwork there. Right? It was the timing aspect. He just didn't think it was possible. So it was very memorable to him. And that's how I was always getting these advantages. Is I would tell people, oh yeah, I'll have that proposal to you in 2 days. And the big guy, he wouldn't have it there 4 days. By the time he shows up, he looks like a slacker because I'm already there. I normally already have it signed up before he even shows up because I was using that Civil War tool of basically jacking with people's time, right? Because again, we all fall back to this whole concept of time and what we're told the norm. You got to break out of anything that you've been told, anything with the norm. You got to manipulate time as a weapon, is the bottom line.
Yeah, you have a way of leveraging time that I think is it really does put a big smile on my face here. Um, because yeah, there's a certain element. I talk about time. I first started to realize that time was something that you can use differently. I was a actuarial consultant, and I had to take exams for to be able to pass and get my credentials. And I kept trying to save time by studying less. I'm like, oh, it said if it's 100 hours per hour of exam, 3 hour exam, that should be a 300-hour exam. I'll just study like 250.
Right.
So I could save time, quote unquote.
Mhm.
What ended up happening, and I didn't realize it until it was too late. Like I wanted to leave the profession, became an entrepreneur and all that. But like
Right.
what I realized was like, there's time with the little T and time with the big T. I'm over here trying to save 50 hours this one time, and I failed the exam, and I got to take another 6 more months before I can take the exam again. You know,
Right.
like like
Yep.
like 6 months versus 50. Like I lost, and I lost over
Right.
and over and over again. It took me.
Yep.
And it's one of those things where you don't see it because you lose so much in there. But you saw how much you were winning. That's what I think. Like you're on the other side. You're like, wait a minute. If they say 300 hours, I do 320, and I'm guaranteed to pass this, I'm going to get through
Yep.
my exam so much like the equivalent of that. I'm going to get this deal that much faster. I'm going to be here. Like it's just going to keep stacking on top of each other.
Yeah, but see, it's hard when you're like on your test example,
Yeah.
that is not something where you can actually, outwork or outscore somebody. See, when you're in a regular business, being highly efficient with your time doesn't always lead to success because your boss may not appreciate what you did, right? Others may take credit for your work. The concept of leveraging time really only works when you control your destiny, right?
Mm.
And that's why, other than that summer job, I've never worked for anyone because I realized even during that summer job that it's kind of like playing in Las Vegas and the odds are stacked against you, right? You're not, even if I had been the most stellar employee ever at the Richards Group, I wasn't the owner, right? And he had a son. The son would eventually be the owner, and I would be left out, if you're going to go crazy on time and crazy on effort, you kind of got to get all the fruits of your success, right? That
Wow.
that's the key. That's the key part of the deal. If I'd worked at another billboard company, working those crazy hours, it wouldn't have meant anything. I would have been just known as the weirdo guy that is at the office all day.
That's so interesting to me because what you've done is that you've also framed you framed the hard part, you framed the work as like the gift, you know?
Yeah,
It's like by the way, you get to work this like this here, and it's a vehicle that allows you to get even more return than doing that same work anywhere else.
that's correct.
Yeah. Oh, Frank, I'm thrilled with this conversation. I'm so glad we talked. Whew. I have this one more question that's on my mind. I'm wondering if I should go there or not, because it might open up some things. But with what you're doing now with mobile homes, you did the last one, the Billboard one was you and a bookkeeper. Do you still have like a very lean team now? Like is it like how does the mobile homes area, how do you
Well,
think about that?
now the mobile home park thing has grown much bigger than the billboard thing ever was.
Mm,
And that's because when I got in the billboard business, I was late to the game. Most of those companies had already gotten their territories well established in the 60s and the 70s. And here I am in in the 80s trying to compete. And so I'm going after the scraps of what they left,
mm,
right? I'm trying to beat them out on lesser locations or things that they might have missed the first time around. The mobile home park thing, my timing was much better.
mm.
So on that one, what happened was I got in at the optimal time. So I was buying at mobile home parks at what is proven to be kind of the optimal time to be buying mobile home parks. So we have a much larger team on the mobile home park side, but mainly because my timing was better. You don't determine your timing in life. You get dealt the cards of timing,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
don't get to choose on the macro level whether you're in a recession or depression or a good time, but also every industry has cycles. And unless you invent the industry, you have to deal with what you have. And so I had a better cards dealt on the mobile home park chapter than I did on the billboard chapter. Because on the billboard, I
Okay.
was very late to the game, right?
Interesting. So now the thing I'm curious about then is so now you have better timing. Time is showing up again in another area, right?
Yep.
In this case here, I'm curious about it from like a leadership perspective and how do you get the rest of your team to join you in this kind of like counterintuitive elements of of the way that you leverage time? Like how have you been able to instill that or to operationalize that in your
Yeah.
organization
See,
beyond you?
so the management team on a mobile home park management is very simplistic. You don't have to leverage your time when you're a
Mm.
manager in the field. All you do is every month you collect in the rent, you monitor the people aren't breaking the rules, and that's kind of about it, right? So you have property condition, you have collections, but the
Ah,
where you have to be aggressive on the mobile home park side is like I did on the billboard. It's in buying the properties and expanding.
yep.
Okay. Again, it's all about it's not like you're leading the team. The team itself, parks are pretty much once you've turned them around, they're on cruise control.
Yeah.
And so it really was like the billboards because it was like my bookkeeper on the billboards who was the person who logged in the rents and wrote the checks and just told me if we were okay. Are we overdrafted at the bank? Are we not? Whatever. But the concept, those two industries are very similar to each other because you make all the money on the buying side, right?
Interesting.
It's not like technology where you probably make it on the invention side in the business in the industries I've chosen because I probably won't have a
Yeah.
third chapter, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm too old to do anything again. But that's what they both had in common is they're very similar contrarian weirdo industries. That there was the opportunity through specialization and time and working smartly and time efficiency to succeed in them.
Yeah, and this one goes into like I'm seeing a different like macro time element where you're like, and the timing of the market. So it's like someone else could come in right now, and it's like you missed it. You
Yeah,
can try and outwork me, but I guys got there at the right time, and you had like, and what I'm also hearing is like you. It sounds to me there was a moment that came in where I could feel like the billboard element there being where it's like, hey, look, I got a bunch of real estate, I got a bunch of billboards during the recession, and so that then positioned me well right afterwards. And
correct.
this one, you're like, look, I was able to ride the entire wave of this, and
Yep.
the real element of time was snatching it while it mattered, moving in at the right inflection point for this industry,
Yeah.
and then getting everything
Right.
done. Then it's a matter
Yeah,
of
I mean,
just like,
I live in Missouri and I'm right on the Mississippi River. Like I
yeah.
can see it out my windows
Yeah.
in the distance when the water level is high, right?
Yeah.
Mississippi River, if you're flowing with the river, it's a whole lot easier than trying to go upstream on the river, right? And so when I was in the billboard business, I was trying to go upstream. I
Mm.
mean, I that's why that whole chapter was much more raw. That was more of a life or death David versus Goliath moment. On the mobile home park side, which I like better, I was riding it with the river. So I was
Yeah.
doing the same things, but it was a lot easier for me because I wasn't trying to fight all the mega trends.
All right, so we're going to wrap up this conversation here, but I'm going to leave outlines. I want you to think about that for yourself right now, right? Where it's like take. I think there's a really great opportunity to look at time, look at what you're doing here from a specialization perspective, a timing perspective, a time efficiency perspective, a time overlap perspective, like the multitasking is like how many different things are happening at the same time. I think that there's a really great opportunity, and I'm looking at it for myself here to look at it and say, okay, I know that I'm going to put in the hours, and I'm getting a better sense as to which hours that I put into my business yield the results that I'm looking for. Then the question comes to, well, with who should I be spending the time with? And where do like all these things keep giving you additional leverage? And I think that there's elements of what we're talking about here, Frank, that is it's deeply helpful for me. I love seeing how you do it. And I'll also just say on a personal note, the insight that I'm getting here is it's nice to be with someone who is willing to bring, who's unapologetic about intensity, and recognizes the responsibility that comes with along with it. It's there's a freedom for me that comes in that just says, yeah, like I like to do things and go
No,
all in.
actually, hold on one second. My battery on my computer's
Yep.
almost dead. Something's happened. Hold on one
Okay.
second.
We
Give me
got you.
one.
All right, we're
Okay.
back. We're back in here. Frank, this is actually a good time for us to wrap up this conversation. What I'm going to do is this. Firstly, outliers for any of you that are listening here. That we have this thing that we call the one person, one conversation at a time initiative. And this is an ask to yes, go ahead and share this out with the people in your world. Like we would love for this conversation to take fire and really. Not just inspire, but like also provide freedom and direction for someone who is their own level of contrarian. That's a fun thing about being with outliers and trailblazers. We're all rebels, mavericks, like pioneers, and so like we take what we want from it and we go. But I ask you here, outliers, to join us in the one person, one conversation at a time initiative by slowing down and thinking of one person who this would be like the absolute like right message for. Almost like Frank, when you're talking about being a matchmaker, it's like anyone could have this sign, but you, McDonald's, would really benefit from this sign right here. So my ask is that you share this out with your world and think of one person in your world who would specifically benefit from this conversation and share it with them. All right. Frank, I'm going to come to you. We're going to wrap up our conversation. The way I like to do it is two ways. One is we're going to let outliers, like we're going to leave outliers out there. They've gotten what they need from this or what they're going to pull from it. However, if any outlier wants to go deeper in the journey with you, wants to stay in your world, wants to go further with you, what's the best way for them to go and do that?
Sure. There's two ways, but both online. We have a website called mhu.com, which stands for Mobile Home University, but most of my writings and thoughts are on there. We also have another website, creonline.com, which I think now is creuniversity.com. But you'll find a lot of my writings and things there. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to throw one more thing out just to really expand people's visions. All right. Going back to what we said at the onset of the concept of the 6 F's, right? You have to look at your time. Like you can't just be a workaholic. That isn't going to work for you. If you read the Warren Buffett book, you'll be very disappointed because he scored incredibly well on business. No one will dispute that, but he sacrificed his family for his business, right? His wife grew to not like him anymore. I don't know where he stands with the kids, but the real life story is kind of sad. And so don't come away from this discussion thinking the key is to work 24 hours a day. That works on one item, financial independence. Okay, that's good, but that won't help you with friends, family, fun, fitness, or faith. Okay. So you got to look at your timesheet and you got to say, okay, I got to keep all these balls in there. I got to score an A in all of this stuff, right? Because you will have to sacrifice work time for friends, for family, for fun. That's the exciting challenge of it all, is you can't go all in on one item. People go in all in on one item, and you see it all the time, and they have a very unfulfilling life because you can't score well on one. I mean, if you had an A and 5 F's, that's not very good, right? So you got to be figured out. I got X amount of time. How do I score high in all areas? And that means sometimes when you think, well, I need to do this report all night, but I'm going to have to miss my kids' play. No, go to the kids' play, ding dong, because you're going to blow that F. You're going to make an F on that one, right? So that's what I found as my big overarching thing is as I've gotten an older person is you can't do what I did as a young person. I mean, I was lucky I got out after 14 years of working 24 hours a day, or I would never been happy. I would look back and said, "What the heck was I doing? I devoted all my time and energy to making money for what?" That's the issue. So you can't people they use that as a cop out all the time. People are like, "Oh, I can't afford to do this. I can't afford to do that." That's not true. I mean, back when I would go to all my daughter's stuff, the people who didn't show up at their kids' stuff, it wasn't because of money. They just didn't want to go. They had something else they wanted to do, and they didn't want to go sit in the stands like I did for 5 hours or 8 hours to watch a 2 minute 800 race, right? So you can't just be all narrow focused. So I don't want anyone to come away from this saying, aha, now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be highly specialized and outwork everyone. Not to be successful, you're not. You might on one item, you might make more money doing that, but you'll still fail if you can't figure out how to make your time so efficient that you can keep all the other balls in the air. Just want to throw that out because that's the
Oh,
hard part is when you realize you can't just be a workaholic maniac and be happy. Look at Steve Jobs. I mean, read his biography. What a miserable son of a gun that guy was. I mean, he did Apple Computer. I mean, everyone hated his guts. Wife hated him. His partners hated him. His employees hated him. He was a jerk 24/7 because he was so focused. He thought it was all about the money, but that wasn't the key to happiness. He died because of the money, right? He wouldn't go to the doctor. He needed a routine procedure medically, and he refused to go because he it interfered with launching the iPhone and launching this and launching that. Doctor kept calling saying, dude, you got to go in. No, I can't go in. I don't have any time. I mean, very poor time management is the moral. So
I
you
appreciate you
gotta
bringing this all
you
in.
gotta you gotta if you can't score well in those six F categories, then you're never gonna be happy. It's never gonna work.
I really appreciate you bringing this in, Frank. I think it's incredibly important, and I think that um, yeah, I want to say why I appreciate it. Not this is important, but I think it gives us the reality of life. Like we're here to win on many different areas. We're here because we want I have my eyes, so like, like you have your six F's, I have my five eyes. But we want like we're here to it's for more than just one thing, right? And
Right.
I appreciate that today we had the conversation about the financial independence, and that was where the focus was in there. I want to ask you, Frank, here. I end this conversation with something that you might have learned or been reminded of as a result of this conversation. So I called it like we had outsights for them. What's an insight that you got that you may be taking
Well,
away?
it's always fun talking with people as an older person, and I assume you have some younger people on listening to this that about how life works. Because often what happens is people don't figure it out till they're too late. And I know a lot of people I went to college with who realized they were miserable with their life at the ages of 40s and 50s, and you missed your life. It's gone. Can't go back. So when people tell me things like, I went to nursing school, but I hate nursing, I'm like, well, then get the heck out of nursing because don't keep doing it because you hate it. You're 24 years old. You're gonna like look back and say, "Oh, I hated my life for 40 years of nursing." You got to find the what makes you happy. And when they did a study, Harvard did a study on happiness. It's the longest running study they ever did. It took so long that everyone in the study died of old age before it came out. And what they did is they followed, I think, 800 people from birth to death. They couldn't finish the study till the last person had died. And they would every year ask them, "Are you happy?" And if they said, they'd either say yes or no, they say, "Why are you unhappy?" Then what they found at the end of the study was it was not about money. See, that's a weird ending. People thought at Harvard that the ending would be the successful people were the happy, the unsuccessful people were the unhappy. That isn't what they found. They found these happy people were the ones who had good relationships. The unhappy were the ones who had bad relationships. And it horrified them being an Ivy League college to find that some of the most successful people in the study, the ones that had grown on to be, multimillionaires, were among the most unhappy. And the people who were the biggest failures based on what Harvard had anticipated, which was based on their career, were the happiest. Because the guy whose career hadn't gone anywhere, he was spending all of his time with his wife and kids and making friends and having fun, and it just blew them away because it was kind of the antithesis to what they had dreamed of. because being Harvard, they wanted the study to show that the key to life was Harvard, right? So it kind of just took the wind out of the sails. And I never forgot reading that study. That's when I suddenly realized, you know what, maybe I need to be a little more well-rounded because Harvard's telling me making money, that's just one little item in the whole deal. So at any rate, so it's fun for me talking about this stuff because no one really ever talks to me in my normal life about, the billboard business or any of this stuff. So it's been fun for me just kind of going over these thoughts for people. Then I come away from this happy that maybe someone listened to this and thought, you know what? That's actually not a bad idea. I think I'll start cutting out my wasteful time and I'll reapply that to good time.
Well, I want to let you know, Frank, so that you don't have to leave here and question, like, I'm impacted in a really meaningful way. And
Good.
I'm very, very excited for the other outliers and trailblazers to get this. This is one of those episodes where I'm just going to send it. I'll be like, hey, like, as one person, one conversation at a time, this is one of the conversations to take a listen to. And I
Sounds
appreciate it
good.
because you bring that. What I really love about it is that you bring a holistic approach to it. It's your success, but it's you're considering the various parts of life and bringing it together. And from that, there, the same way that you got to drive in the car and ask your ad agency person here, like some of the things out there. I appreciate you letting us drive in the proverbial car that is this
Sure.
conversation. All right,
You
all right,
bet.
all right. Until the next time we talk, then outliers. Remember this: be you on purpose. Journey on.